Sometimes the most powerful secrets hide in the most ordinary places, and when the truth comes out, it can shake empires. If you want more shocking and emotional stories like this, don't forget to hit subscribe and stay with us till the end. In the heart of a quiet countryside village where the morning dew clung to the rice fields like scattered diamonds and the simple huts stood as silent witnesses of lives filled with struggle yet burning with resilience, there lived a young girl named Aisha, whose sharp mind and humble spirit made her unlike anyone else around her. For though her clothes were plain and her sandals worn thin, her eyes sparkled with an intelligence that no hardship could dim. And every evening children from the village gathered under a banyan tree where she used broken chalk and a cracked slate to teach them lessons in mathematics, literature, and science, her voice carrying both authority and kindness, while her mother stitched clothes for villagers and her younger brothers helped in the fields, never knowing that destiny was quietly weaving threads of fate that would one day collide with one of the wealthiest families in the nation. Meanwhile, in the bustling metropolis far away, CEO Asfandyar, a man whose empire stretched across industries from real estate to technology, paced in his glass-walled office frustrated about his only son, Ian, who despite having every privilege, expensive schools, foreign tutors, and all the luxuries a young man could dream of, remained reckless, distracted, and on the verge of academic failure, making his father furious and worried about the reputation of their family, for in elite circles grades were not just about intelligence but about prestige. And so one by one, tutors resigned in defeat, unable to handle Ian's arrogance, until fate played its hand one summer when Ian's car broke down on a road trip near the countryside, and while waiting for repairs, he wandered aimlessly until he stumbled upon a gathering beneath a tree where Aisha stood before a group of children, her voice commanding yet warm as she explained algebra with such clarity that even the smallest child nodded in understanding, and Ian, who had mocked every tutor before, found himself silently listening, his heart thudding as if struck by lightning, for in that moment he realized he had finally found someone who could break through his walls of arrogance, not with force but with wisdom, and so, shocking his driver and guards, he approached her with a request that startled her. To become his personal tutor in the city. At first she refused, shy and cautious, saying she had responsibilities at home, that the city was not for her, that she was just a village girl. But his persistence and the promise of financial support for her family eventually swayed her, and soon she arrived in the glittering towers of the metropolis, where she stepped timidly into the marble halls of the CEO's mansion, her presence drawing judgmental whispers from maids and staff who looked down on her plain clothes and rural accent, while CEO Asfandyar himself scoffed at the idea that his spoiled son wanted a village girl as a tutor. But Ian, for the first time in his life, stood firm against his father, declaring that if he was to learn, it would only be from her, and thus reluctantly, the CEO agreed. Days turned into weeks, and under Aisha's guidance, Ian transformed, not just in his studies but in character, growing disciplined, respectful, and even humble, something his father could hardly believe, and though the CEO would never admit it, he began to notice that his son's laughter returned, his grades improved, and his confidence grew, not arrogance, but real confidence built on knowledge and effort. And while everyone else dismissed her as just a tutor, Asfandyar's curiosity about this girl deepened, for she carried herself with quiet dignity that seemed out of place for someone from poverty, her words often carrying wisdom beyond her years, her eyes sometimes clouded with sorrow as though holding memories of a past she never spoke about. And so one evening, driven by suspicion and a CEO's instinct to know everything, he ordered a private investigation into her background, expecting to find nothing more than the lineage of farmers and laborers. But when the report landed on his desk, his hands trembled as he read the truth. Aisha was not merely a poor village girl, she was the granddaughter of Ibrahim Shah, a legendary industrialist whose empire had once rivaled his own, a man who had mysteriously disappeared with his family years ago after a corporate betrayal, and the betrayal had links. Dark links, back to Asfandyar's very own company, where power struggles and greed had destroyed reputations and driven Ibrahim Shah's family into ruin, leaving only whispers of a surviving child. And now that child, that lost heiress, was standing in his house, teaching his son. The revelation struck Asfandyar like thunder, for not only did she belong to a family that once could have crushed him, but her very presence was a reminder of sins buried in the past. And yet she had said nothing, never boasted, never demanded recognition, choosing instead a life of simplicity, her identity hidden even from herself perhaps, Until now, unable to contain his emotions, Asfandyar summoned her late one night to his office, his voice unsteady as he revealed the truth, and her face paled, her hands trembling as memories of childhood she had locked away came flooding back. The mansion she once lived in, the lullabies her grandmother sang, the sound of chaos when everything was lost. Tears streaming down her cheeks as she realized who she truly was, and for a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the ticking clock, until Asfandyar, the mighty CEO, stood up and, to the shock of his staff watching through glass doors, bowed his head before her, whispering an apology not as a businessman but as a man burdened with guilt, admitting that he had unknowingly built part of his empire on her family's downfall. Yet what shocked him most was not her identity but her response, for instead of anger or revenge, she looked at him with steady eyes and said she did not wish for wealth or titles, only the chance to continue teaching, to lift others as she always had. And in that moment, Asfandyar realized that true power did not lie in money, skyscrapers, or empires, but in the quiet strength of a girl who had lost everything yet still chose to give knowledge to others. From that day forward, his respect for her turned into reverence, and while the world would eventually learn her true name and lineage, to him she would forever remain the girl who saved not only his son but his own soul from the shadows of greed. And as for Ian, he looked at her with pride, knowing he had chosen not just a tutor but someone who carried the weight of history with grace. And though their journey was far from over, one truth remained unshakable: sometimes, the greatest shocks in life come not from enemies or rivals, but from the people we least expect, standing humbly before us, holding nothing but a book and a will of steel.